20 minutes is not very much a long time to talk about adult education in Slovenia. Probably I'm the only one actually who speaks about this topic within this program. I presume that I am, so yes. So I plan actually to give you a kind of a glimpse of adult education in Slovenia, and also touch the topic, how do we approach the vulnerable groups, or what are our experiences, and also what are our challenges. So which one is working? This one? So maybe a little bit about my institute, because I work for a public national institute, and what we do, and also what we do in the area of adult education. So a little bit about adult education in Slovenia, but in numbers, so that you can see what are the challenges. If we have time, I actually included also a few cases of good practices dealing with different vulnerable groups, but we can select among them if there will be not enough time, and what are the challenges ahead, but it's with the emphasis of vulnerable groups. So if I start with our institute, as I said, it's a public institute. We were established 30 years ago. There aren't many similar institutes across Europe. There was one in Denmark, which is closed down. There was one in United Kingdom, NAIS, which is closed down or merged to another one. We're quite a rare institute of this type in Europe. So we are one of the three main public institutes, one dealing with vocational education, also for adults, the other with general education, also with general education for adults, and we do the rest. And what is the rest? So mainly non-formal education, adult education, but also adult education as a system. We actually look into all issues regarding adult education in Slovenia. So we do research a little bit, development, different kind and expertise. We are active in educational guidance, training of different trainers that work in the adult education area. We do a lot of promotion and awareness raising, for example, lifelong learning weeks. And we do also different kind of things in support to the ministry as regards the system of adult education. 30 years ago, we actually were thinking that our aim is actually development of culture of lifelong learning in Slovenia, and we still stick to that. We're quite happy that there was a vision about that 30 years ago, and we try to actually put off all of the attempts to deal with only vocational, only labor market, and so on. So we have broad view of adult education in Slovenia. We are not very large, only around 40, not all of us on long-term contracts. Our main sources of funding is Ministry of Education and tiny bit Ministry of Labor, and also other projects. In Slovenia, we do not have a department for adult education at the ministry. We have a division, which is part of another department, and this is maybe one of the causes of the present position of adult education in Slovenia. So a little bit about the figures, but also about the legal basis, so that you know what we have in this respect. We have a special law on adult education, which was accepted 2 years ago. It covers mostly non-formal adult education, but also basic school for adult, which is a primary school, but a special program for adults. This is formal program, and also it deals with public network of providers and many other things. That means vocational education of adults is covered in other laws, and also general formal education in others is in other laws. On the basis of adult education law, we prepare the most important strategic document, which is Adult Education Master Plan. The first one was prepared in 2004, and we were quite innovative in Europe at that time. This is the third one that is being now in process of acceptance, and it will be valid until 2030. What is maybe important to emphasize is that we put equal emphasis on different areas of adult education. That means general, formal, and education for work, labor market. Target groups are defined according to how we perceive our problems. We also stimulate research and development, guidance, validation of prior learning, promotion, and awareness raising as a supporting activities to adult education. There are other laws, as I said, covering or enhancing actually adult education. Also, for example, labor market policies such as active employment policy, which actually invest a lot in education of unemployed, but I will not talk about that. So aims is of the Adult Education Master Plan is to raise the participation rate. I will tell you a little bit later why this is very crucial for in Slovenia right now. The other crucial moment is raising the level of basic skills, literacy, key competences. I will tell you a little bit about that as well. Then also about the aim is also raising the level of education of adults, raising resilience and capabilities of adult education adults for the labor market, and so on. What are you maybe interested? Are target groups? The target groups that are written down actually in this document, and the document and the adult education policies in Slovenia will be focused on them, are adults with low level of skills and competences, regardless of age, and something wrong? Then also groups of adults that need to raise their level of general knowledge, which we don't mean formal education, but the broad knowledge about what is the world around us at the moment. The adults who need continuous vocational education and training, young adults, elderly, and also as a very variable group, adults with limited access to social, cultural, economic, and educational public goods. That means adults living in remote areas. Slovenia is a tiny country, but 10 kilometers across the mountain means sometimes a lot. Then Roma people, around 7,000 of them are in Slovenia, ethnic minorities, migrants, homeless people, disabled, and adults with special needs, but also including incarcerated adults. I can't move forward. Can I do my space? I think it's important maybe to mention that there are several ministries who actually combine resources for adult education in Slovenia. In the first period, there were only 2, then there were 7, and now there are 12. That means that, but if you see how the funds raised, there's not much of the raise, but anyhow, we think that this kind of policies are much more transparent. That means that also Ministry of Culture actually is showing what is investing in adult education as a Ministry of Culture, and probably some of the programs, some of the maybe initiatives that you will listen to in the next day or while you are here, they are actually funded from the funds that Ministry of Culture actually transparently show here. So maybe a little bit about what are adult education providers in Slovenia. Traditional maybe providers are adult education centers. Those are former folk high schools. This is a concept similar to Scandinavia and German-speaking countries. Because of the new law legislation from this year on, actually they are part of public network of adult education providers. This is something that is very breakthrough. This is new, which should be done years ago, but it is new. So those centers are part of public network. Then secondary, vocational, and general educational schools that have problems for adults, former problems, but also others, around 80 of them. Then there's a plethora of private educational companies dealing with digital literacy, language skills, coaching, or whatever. There are a lot more of them. Then there are regional development agencies in each of the regions. Then there are universities and providers of higher education that also have adult education programs. Educational centers in light companies, which is very, very scarce because there aren't many big companies anymore, but they have educational centers for their employees. Then competence centers. I put cultural institutions, but it is not the order. That means public libraries, museums, and such institutions are doing more and more adult education recently. But we have also a variety of NGOs dealing with very different kind of interest of people, and a lot actually of adults are participating in those activities. And those activities are many times educational activities as well. So in figures, there are two maybe main problems of adult education in Slovenia. I won't go into the others because we have no time, but one is that participation rate actually dropped in last 10 years. We were above European level with, this is going. We were above European level with 16% almost 10 years ago, but last year the participation rate is 8.4. So this is a problem, maybe because of the COVID, but maybe also other reasons. So we are not very proud about that. This is a problem, and National Master Plan will try to address this issue. So the problem is that low educated adults participate much less than more educated adults, and this problem is wider in Slovenia than in other countries. I don't have Netherlands here, but maybe you know your figures. That means that those who have only basic education participate 8 times 7 less frequently. I don't know their figures for other countries, but for example, the average for Europe is 4.7. In all age group, actually participation has been cut to half, but the special problem is especially with elderly, because only tiny bit of them actually participate in adult education. The other problem is the problem of skills, literacy, numeracy, problem solving. Are you familiar with the PIAC research? So we did PIAC in Slovenia in 2016, and actually it came out that every fourth Slovenian actually have low level of skills in numeracy and in literacy. This means 400,000 Slovenians of working age. There's 1,300,000 working age citizens in Slovenia. Around 800 are actually active in the labor market, they work. And out of this base, 400,000 have low skills. They have to stay in labor market for many more years. So this is something that Slovenia will have to deal with. I include also a little bit about reading habits, because you're librarians, you do with reading and promotion of reading. So adults in Slovenia with the university degree read books as frequently as adults with secondary level of education in Sweden, Germany, Norway, and Denmark. So this is a kind of surprise. So reading habits, reading culture actually is somehow diminishing, maybe in favor of other source of reading, not only books, but I think this is quite indicative. And also, those adults in Slovenia who never read books are scoring very low in literacy. There is the Netherlands, is the other background, just maybe to look at when you will receive the presentation. So I won't go into other issues, actually. Those two are good enough, actually. I said I will talk about outreach and how to reach adults. And I will just shortly emphasize that we see outreach actually as a combined issue, as a reaching out and also as awareness raising on one side. But also when we talk about outreach, we touch ethical and equality dimensions. That means that outreach is actually connected with fairness, with equal rights, and also with responsibility of ones to act and to participate in adult education. So I think that when we talk about outreach, we have to have in mind those aspects. Which are the vulnerable groups or marginalized groups in Slovenia? We prefer actually vulnerable because this is a kind of a process. When we say marginalized, we actually think it is the end. They already are in some black corner. So they're still vulnerable. We can still achieve something and bring them into the light. So those are adults with limited access to social, cultural, economic, and different educational public goods, we see. And when we talk about vulnerable groups, we talk about multiple kind of exclusions. So usually they have low levels of education. And when someone has low level of education, the access to any kind of public sources is limited. Then if this is combined with unemployment and with poverty and exclusion, we talk about, and poor health is multiple exclusion. And this is the case with most of the vulnerable groups. So those who are identified in Slovenia as vulnerable groups are adults from remote areas or living in the countryside, low educated and low skilled adults, which have less than secondary school or maybe not even basic school, long-term unemployed, low educated parents, because low education of parents is very much connected in Slovenia with the academic achievements of their kids. So Roma, migrants, homeless, and so on. I have now 3 or I think 4 cases of good practice because my time, I think I ran out of time. You can select which one you want to hear. This is the case of a model of adult literacy programs in Slovenia. This is a model how we actually, our experiences, our research actually show us how to approach. This is one. Then is the study circles. Also Scandinavia model of study circles, which actually are reaching out adults in most remote areas throughout Slovenia. This is the second. Then is the project of project learning for young adults, for young dropouts. Very successful project, quite some time. It was renewed a few years ago. First, it was fully supported by the Ministry of Education, and they get rid of it, and then the Ministry of Labor actually took over, and it's still on place. And also, as a kind of support service, is information and guidance centers for adults in Slovenia, which is a widespread network of free of charge information and guiding activities for adults of all ages all over Slovenia. Would you like to hear? Or you will read about it later on? You can choose because there are all links. I think we don't have time, but I would not like to ruin it.
It's the most interesting to tell us about. Which one?
Well, I work for many years on adult literacy, and I just see your book start over there. So I don't know, maybe this one, but I'm not sure this is your priority. Can I go back? Okay. I'm also very fond of study circle because this is an amazing thing. And also many public libraries actually are doing those, but maybe they will talk about them. So literacy obviously is a problem in Slovenia. We did the first research in 2000 in adult literacy, and it came out that there is a problem then as well. So we started actually with the programs. We try to develop, we try to approach different adults with this problem. And we actually developed, or we understood the model, what we did 10 years later when we were doing evaluation of this project. And our initial actually thought was that because we are dealing with adults who are non-traditional participants in any kind of organized learning, that we have to approach them in special ways. So because learning are not very valued or appreciated for them, they don't see learning as a mean of their promotion in life. We said that we have to change this perspective. We have to change their learning experiences because in many times they're negative from previous schooling. And we think that the good way forward would be if we address their emergent needs. So we actually try to understand what are their emergent needs, and we try actually to build a program, a curriculum around it. And family literacy is one of these areas. So there are probably very little parents who are not interested in the schoolwork of their children. In all over the world, I think. So we actually base this attraction, we attract them to the program with this. So you will be able, please come, you will be able to help your kids in the first 3 grades, which is the literacy grades in primary school. You will attend the program together with your kids. You will do things within the program that you can repeat at home. You will come back, we will talk about it, we will see what works. So this is actually the basic of this. We started in 2005, I think, with this program, and we train teachers. We develop a curriculum, and what is important, I think, is, which is the many times difference with family literacy programs in other family literacy programs, that these programs are actually targeted to parents, because if you have a well-literate parent, you have literate family. So we actually try to build the confidence, but also skills and understanding of how important the early ages in family are for later literacy development of kids. So it works very well. So actually this picture actually represents actually how actually we understood later on what is going on in these programs. So we deal with vulnerable groups, we address their emergent needs. Most of them, they don't have very good experiences on their previous schooling, and they have low levels of skills. Within the primary schools where those programs sometimes run, or in adult education centers, we try to reach those parents who are more in need, considering all the data protection and so on. But teachers always know who those parents are, but programs are open to others as well, because parents listen to other parents as well, to their experiences and so on. And they don't want to be only those who have kids with problems. So it's better to mix them all together. So we address their needs. We try with different approaches and with respect to change their educational experiences, because they get valuable knowledge they can apply in their daily life. They get new knowledge about how to deal with different problems with kids, how to actually approach schools and teacher and so on. They actually gain for themselves, knowledge for themselves, not only this part that they need for raise their kids. So the outcome is better skills, new educational needs. This is, I think, the turning point when the new educational needs emerge in any kind of program. So when people started to be interested to learning new things, you know exactly that you achieve long-term aims of the projects. And this is it. So this is just another picture of it. We address, if I sum up, emergent needs to have their children in school. They develop reading and writing in relation to their needs, to this need. Actually, the program enables personal, first-person experience and with developing of literacy in family. We encourage actually parents to storytelling. We encourage them to read for pleasure, but also for learning. From all this, almost certainly new educational needs and interests emerge for parents. So it is support for parents for the good of their kids. This is it. Challenges in Slovenia are definitely how we are going to deal with dropping participation rates of adults, especially those who are low literate, low skilled, low educated, unemployed, and so on. We have a challenge actually how we will develop appropriate and different approaches to different target groups. And a very important aspect is also professionalization of any kind of adult educators, irrespectively of where they work. That means those who work with vulnerable groups, because this is very difficult, very demanding job. Usually they do this kind of job in almost all countries across Europe as part-time work. So they do this a short period of time and they go somewhere else. So we are talking about the professional work, about the career, about the support from their institutions they work, in order to actually maintain their careers and to actually have experts and people who are devoted to this kind of work. Thank you for your attention. Here you have some links. I'm willing to answer your questions, but I don't think I have time. Thank you very much.